Welcome to Open Comments with myself, Ash,
And me, Oliver.
where we'll discuss things openly with our guests from a variety of backgrounds and from different walks of life. Through this podcast, we hope to give you an inside look into a variety of topics with an equal mix of humour and candour. In this series, we'll touch on some of the following topics: healthcare, HR, diversity, access to technology, and lots more. We hope you enjoy our show and look forward to bringing more topics into the fold. Let's get started.
Okay, and joining us today we have James Scott. James Scott is the Chief Financial Officer for the Open Group and a member of the Executive Management Team. James is also the Corporate Secretary of the Open Group Governing Board. And I'll let you talk a little bit more about your experience and the general duties you have.
Sure, hi. Thanks for having me. Yes, you just described it very accurately. That's exactly my job title. In practice, that means that I look after all our companies. The Open Group is not just one company, it's a collection of companies in the UK and the US and in China and India. And so there's a lot of work that's involved in doing accounts for those entities and tax returns and all that sort of super stuff, and looking after all our cash in different parts of the world. So that's kind of my main job. My team is based here in the UK. I've got 4 people here working for me. And HR, of course, we didn't mention HR, but Debbie Harrop, our HR manager, works directly for me as well. So our job really is mainly to look after the money and to do our reporting to the governing board every quarter, and we have to do accounts which we have to give to the authorities in the countries where we're based every year. And the routine stuff, making sure people get paid on time, which is good, and your expenses and all of those good things. It's been quite an interesting time. I've been here for 12 years. On my second stint, most people here these days probably don't know, but I worked here before. Back in 2002, I was here for a year, and then I came back in 2010, and I've been here 12 years in the second stint. So I've been around here for 20 years, and I'm starting to get an idea of what it is that we do. It takes people a long time to learn everything about what the Open Group does. I'm in a good position to do that because I'm on the exec team and the board, so I get kind of a good view of everything the company's up to, really, which I'm lucky to have. And I think my job is to help people understand more about how the company works, and I'm always happy to explain and give time to people who want to know more. My team is Alexis Bird, who's the financial controller. We've got Abby Franklin and James Bevan in the accounting team, and Debbie Harrop as well, of course, in HR, and Nicola Aubrey as well, who's kind of business reporting manager. She reports to me too.
So now that we're coming towards the end of the calendar year, we obviously know that you're very busy. What kind of work comes at the end of the year, and are you kept more busy than you are for the rest of the year? Is there anything towards the end of the year that you need to sort out before the new year starts?
That's a good question. I mean, our busiest times of the year are probably not in actually at the end of the year, but it's dealing with things early in the new year. So we have an annual audit by KPMG, and they come either here to Reading or they do it virtually these days, but they spend a lot of time going over our books. To answer your question, now we're talking on the 22nd of November, so we've got 7-8 weeks until the end of the year. We're thinking very much about cash, and we're thinking very much about our revenues. One thing that anybody who's in the certification team and elsewhere will know is that the end of the year is when we do a lot of our business in our voucher sales and with people taking the examinations, the knowledge-based exams through Pearson VUE. A lot of that happens at the end of the year, so we're in a really much better position these days because there's a lot of extra reporting now that Andrew and Nicola Aubrey have managed to pull together for us, that we can see very accurately, almost in real time, what people are buying in terms of vouchers and when they're sitting their exams. So we've got a really good feel for how things are going. But it doesn't tell us exactly how it's going to go in the next month or two. It's the future, and you just can't predict the future. What we know is that in every year for the last 10 years, there's been a lot of TOGAF revenues in December. So we're just hoping and crossing our fingers that it's going to be the same. I think it will be, but yeah, primarily we're thinking hard about revenue and making sure that everyone, all our customers get invoiced. When we get a new membership, we've had quite a few new memberships recently, we invoice them straight away. We're going to try and get the money in. We actually had a customer today contact us asking to pay, and they haven't even signed a membership agreement yet. So we like those sort of customers because they want to pay us before they even start. They're great. We want more of them. But the thing that we focus on every day more than anything else is the cash. And James Bevan in particular goes through that every morning. And there's, like I said earlier, there's cash all over the world in lots of different bank accounts. We've got 15 bank accounts at least now. So he's constantly looking at the balances and making sure that we've got enough, and making sure that members are paying us as quickly as we want them to. Like I say, and then the audit will kick off in February, March, and that will take quite a long time. There's never really a quiet time for finance, because even when the audit's out of the way, there's always a deadline. There's either a quarterly deadline for the board, or there's a monthly deadline. We have a monthly accounting period close. So we have to do everything within the month. We close the month, then we open the new one. So there's always a deadline coming up. So there isn't really a quiet time at all. There's busy and there's more busy, but there's never any time where you can just sort of put your feet up and chill for a while. There's always something that needs doing.
It's obviously a very busy time, especially as a chief finance officer. So how did you end up becoming chief finance officer at the Open Group? What was your journey beforehand? You mentioned that you had 1 year and then you were away for 8 and then you came back. So how did you end up where you are now?
Gosh, that's quite a long story, but I'll try and condense it a little. So rewind a very long time ago, in about 1982, before most people listening to this were born, I suspect. So I'm in secondary school, I'm 16 and I'm doing my exams, and I was good at French and German, I was good at languages, but I didn't want to be a linguist. I wanted to combine kind of a business, law, economics and stuff with languages. And I went to university in England, in Birmingham, and I did basically a business degree. It's called Commerce. Bachelor of Commerce is my official title, but it was basically a business degree with law and economics and French. So that's where I started, because I just wanted to use my French in particular, and I wanted something that was going to let me have a reasonable chance of getting a job. I mean, that was obviously the point. And I decided in about the second year that accountancy was for me. So I applied to the big accountancy firms, and I got a job in London working for a firm called Ernst Young, who is now became Ernst Young and is now EY. So I worked for them in London, and as an audit team member, basically for 5 years. I passed my chartered accountancy exams in the UK. And then I stayed with them, as I say, for 5 years, left in 1993, and joined a computer company, value-added reseller in the UK, called Simmons McGee, and they were mainly compact resellers, and at the time compact business was really soaring, and this company did very well on the back of that, of compact success, very close partners with us. Stayed there 4 years, and then that company was bought, and I moved from there to a systems integrator called Logica, a UK-based systems integrator called Logica, now part of CGI, or were taken over, bought by CGI later. So I joined there when I left Simmons McGee, and I stayed there for 5 years. That's the other company that I've been at twice. So I joined there in 1997, stayed there for 5 years, worked as a finance director of one of their UK business units, then came here because I wanted to be the kind of chief financial officer. So it's a smaller company, but I wanted a more senior role. That's why I came here in October 2002, and then exactly 1 year later I left here because Logica asked me back. They wanted me to take up a new role, which was more of a global role, setting up the global outsourcing business, which was really interesting because that wasn't just UK based. I was really traveling around, and that's how I ended up eating monkey brains in Morocco, because Morocco was one of the places where we had a team. So we had people in Czech Republic and in Morocco and in the Netherlands and in India and in the UK, and so that was a really good role, really interesting, going around setting up this global outsourcing business which hadn't existed before. And that particular role then was 6 years until 2009, and then CGI bought the company, and I then was doing nothing for a few months, or actually quite a few months, about 9 months, and then I met Alan Brown for lunch. He called me up and said, do you want to come for lunch? And I said, sure, and then he offered me this job, and I came back in April 2010, so I've been here ever since then, so that's another 12 years. So I don't tend to jump around too much between companies, and where I've left, I've kind of had to leave because they've been taken over, and the job's just come to an end. But it's been largely UK based, but kind of different organisations really, and it's always been interesting and enjoyable. So that's how I got here.
Nice. So do you have any tips for those wanting to work in the financial sector?
Okay, so by that I don't know anything about the financial sector in terms of insurance or banking, but in terms of being an accountant in finance, yes, I do have some tips. It depends who you're talking to, obviously. One of the things I've been doing in the last few years is I've been a mentor for students at the University of Birmingham. So I've been remotely mentoring a group of people, as I say, I've stopped doing it now, but I did it for about 4 or 5 years. And all of them are asking that question, what advice can you give me to get into accountancy and finance? And firstly, you need to be prepared to work hard, because those exams that you're working for in the first 3 years, 4 years of your employed life are hard. I mean, they're really hard. Pass rate is typically 40 to 50%, so most people never complete them. So be aware of that. Anybody coming out of university and thinking, I'll put my feet up now, I've got money coming in, I can spend more time in the pub, whatever you want to spend your money on, be aware that actually you can't, because you'll fail your exams and then you'll be sad. So work hard, be aware right from the beginning you're going to have to work super hard, much harder than you've worked at university probably, but it'll be good news later on. Network like mad. I mean, it's much easier these days. You've got LinkedIn, and obviously lots of other ways of keeping in touch with people. That didn't exist in my day at all. I had a Filofax, I had an address book, and when you met somebody who was particularly useful, you'd write down their telephone number. I don't mean mobile phone, I mean the telephone number, or their address if you wanted to write them a letter. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but there were no mobile phones, there was no internet. Obviously the internet existed, but it wasn't in widespread use like it is today. So, you couldn't say, here's my email address, or, WhatsApp me, or whatever the cool people say. So it's much easier these days, but networking is massively important to a young person today starting out. You've got to, build that network right from the beginning. And I don't mean just spamming everybody and sending hundreds of requests to LinkedIn. I mean, link up with people that really are going to help you. Senior people in your organization, recruitment consultants. If you're a young person in finance, you're going to get lots of consultants after you, particularly when you've passed your exams, but find some good ones and keep in touch with them. I'm still in touch today with, in fact, we've just used to hire Alexis, the recruiter that hired me in 2002, 20 years ago. We've kept in touch with him personally, and Debbie knows him, and that's the value of those relationships. They last a long time, and they're really important. So yeah, those are the two main things. There's lots of other general things, when you start in any new organization, don't assume that you know everything, because you really, really don't. And be prepared to listen and learn from people who know more than you do, and be humble, because that's how you develop and grow, by being humble and listening. And eventually you'll build your network of people, and you'll find your path. Everyone does. But if you walk into any new organization thinking that you're the greatest thing and you're going to change things, you're going to fail. So always be prepared to listen to people and to learn from them.
Nice. And how has the Open Group shaped you into the person you are today?
Well, like I say, so that's 13 years in total. Which is more than a quarter of my life working for the Open Group. That's interesting. It's lots of ways. It's given me a great opportunity to travel to places that I'd never been to before. And okay, our travel to conferences typically isn't that glamorous, because you often don't leave the hotel, but nevertheless, I have been to some places like, Sydney, Australia, for example, that I hadn't been to before, and Taiwan and places like that down the years for events. So that's one thing that I've really enjoyed. The thing about the Open Group that's different from the other places I've worked, and I think is probably different from places that most people have worked, is the fact that people stay here for a very long time. Really unusual to have such low levels of leavers in any organisation. It's practically unheard of, actually. So that means that a lot of people here have known each other for a very long time, and that can be good and bad. If somebody's really annoying, they're going to be really annoying for a decade. But what it means more usefully is that you get to know each other pretty well. We obviously haven't met up as often as we would have liked in recent years. The last all-staff meeting, I think, was 5 years ago now, in 2017. It'd be great to do that again. But when you work with people a lot, then you do form a good working relationship, or there's the opportunity to do so. and I've benefited from that. People on the management team in particular, like Patty and Steve and Andrew and Jim and Chris and Judy. I've known them for a very long time, and that helps you form teams. And if you understand each other well, then that generally leads to positive and productive working relationships. That's really, really what I've valued. And also, the opportunity to be effectively number one in the finance team for such a long time. It's great that I have the autonomy to manage my role myself, and Steve is my boss, of course, but he's not sort of peering over my shoulder asking me what's going on every 5 minutes. He's always been quite hands-off, which is really good. So yeah, I've and of course the flexibility. The open group. Home working is common these days, but I've been working from home for the last 10 years. I moved. The office is in Reading in the UK, where we are now, but I moved out of Reading to another part of England in 2012. And I can remember the conversation now I had with Alan Brown. I said, do you mind if I move to this other town, which is about 2 hours away by car? And he said, if your team are happy with it, then he said, I'm happy with it. It's up, as long as you feel you can do your job from there, then that's fine with me. So that was 10 years ago. And I wasn't the only one. There are plenty of other people who've done similar things. We've had people who've changed country and done the same job, like Andy Crow, for example. Martin Kirk is all the way up there in Inverness, and people who've moved a very long way from the original office that they started in. And of course, in many of our territories, we don't even have an office. In fact, right now, the UK is the only, and China are the only two where we have our own offices. So we were really kind of early adopters of the whole working from home idea. So that sense of allowing people to choose where they work from is really useful and really powerful as well. It allows people to feel that they have control over their working day, their work-life balance, and they feel trusted, and they feel that the company values them, trusts them, and they feel empowered. I hope. I certainly did. That's another thing I've learned from, or valued from, working here.
That was one of the strange things for me. That was working for the Open Group was pretty much my first job outside of uni, and being able to work from home I was the only person from anyone that graduated on my course, anyone from my year. No one really had that yet, and this was before COVID and working from home. So it was a blessing, really. And some people it's not for them, but some it's nice. And especially if you're a lot of our staff members that have families, being able to have the flexibility and go on the school runs and things like that, it's very helpful.
Plenty of those. I mean, my children are a little bit older, but yeah, I used to take my little ones, walk them backs and forwards from school, and certainly plenty of people here in the UK that I know that manage their young children's school attendance and their trips to school around their work, and that's great. It's really. It's not that uncommon today, but it was. We forget. But back in 2019 or whatever, when you started, or 2012 when I moved, it was pretty unusual. So yeah, and there we are. That's what I said. People don't leave here very often. Of course, some do, but the levels of attrition or people leaving are really, really very low. And that's one of the reasons I think that people have this kind of, you're allowed to define how you're going to do your job. A lot of power.
You've got this network of people that have been here for so long, and you've also got your own networks from your past as well. Has there been anyone that's particularly influential in where you are now, or Anyone you
Steve, of
admire?
course. I admire Steve enormously. Gosh, I admire lots of people. I don't think there's any one person. Everyone has their strengths and their weaknesses. Alan Brown was particularly valuable to the Open Group in the sense that he really kick-started us on a journey to where we are. Steve has magnificently picked it up and carried us forward, and we've had a lot of recent changes in the last few years to things like OSDU and open process automation, and now the open footprint kind of activities that really way outside the traditional areas of interest, if you like, of enterprise architecture and security. These are new areas for us, so we kind of changed what we do. But Alan, really out of TOGAF back in the late 2000s, 2007, 8, 9, 10, that really was, I think Alan saw that. He saw the potential of the whole the online examinations thing. He saw how much that could work and benefit us. That was quite visionary, I think, and that really we're in a very different position today in terms of the numbers of members that we have, in terms of the numbers of staff that we have, partly through his vision. Like I say, Steve's picked it up and done a great job in taking us forward. There's lots to admire about lots of people in this company. Andrew Josie is admirable for his really, in-depth knowledge and his massive work rate in terms of, supporting the whole certification business. He has, I can't name everyone in the company, but there are, people in every team that really stand out for the quality and the devotion to the cause, if you like. I don't think there's any one person that's kind of mentored me and been a real inspiration. I'm lucky to have worked with lots of people that inspire me, and I think, again, back to the whole longevity thing, I think there are lots of people here with lots and lots of experience, and I find them all inspirational, and that's one of the reasons why I stay, and I suspect that's one of the reasons why lots of people stay.
Thank you. To wrap up, can you describe the Open Group in 4 words or less?
Yes. That's not one of the words. I've got 4 other words. Trusted, professional, quality, supportive. I think we aim to be supportive of our members' endeavours because we think they're for good, and I think we're very supportive of our members in terms of their desire to collaborate and create standards and content. And as I say, in a trusted and professional and a quality way. I think that's what we do.
That's great. We'd like to thank you for speaking with us today, and we hope our listeners have enjoyed this episode as much as we have, and we look forward to touching base with you again soon. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, James.